In episode 63, we looked at positioning your business using the market matrix. We talked about how in modern society we are all so completely overwhelmed by advertising. The figure I shared was 5,000 advertising messages a day that each of us are bombarded with. And if you can't count all of those, then that's just further evidence of how much we ignore so much of the advertising that hits us. Today, we're going to talk about one critical element of neuromarketing, a way that you can position your brand in the marketplace to leverage your customers' potential customers' own brain to help reinforce the value that you can bring. And we're using the framework brand archetypes. Now, I'm going to recommend at the end of this that you head over to brandonian.com and undertake their brand archetype indicator. A great way for you to answer this question for yourself and to compare whether the specifics you answer on that indicator match where maybe you feel as I walk through the different archetypes your business is or needs to be. Here's the concept behind it. We as humans are hardwired pattern recognition machines. If you've been to see any of the Star Wars movies, you know that when somebody shows up dressed in white, that they're the good guy. And when somebody shows up dressed in black, they're the bad guy. Our brain connects those messages on such a fundamental level that the filmmaker doesn't need to explain it anymore. Brand Archetypes takes that power and starts to break down two different competing human needs that we have to help resonate an archetype that just feels familiar. The two axes are this one here, north to south, which looks at mastery, stability, and at the other end, risk, trying something new. We as humans are compelled to want both of those things at different times. We want stability in our life and we want to take risk. On the other axis, we have our desire to belong to something with our desire to be independent, an individual. Again, human needs want both of those things. And we break down the different characteristics on each of those axes. We actually end up with 12 points on the matrix. And each of these 12 points represents a fundamental balance within your brain and how it points the balance of those two axes to create a character, an archetype that you instinctively have an emotional relationship with. What we can then do with each of those 12 points is flesh out exactly what that signifies. So that stability, that real need to control, to rule, is known as the ruler archetype. Microsoft is a fantastic example of a ruler archetype that got a little bit too big for their boots. They stabilized and mastered the PC market to the point where they were actually tried for anti-competitive practices. At the other end of that spectrum, completely the opposite, sitting in a risk space, trying something new, is the 1980s and 1990s version of Apple. Apple that smashed the IBM Big Brother in the famous Super Bowl ad of the early 1980s, and then in the 1990s challenged the Microsoft PC hegemony by suggesting that we could have coloured computers. We could do something different. We could stand out. They could be the hero to help you to try something new. And of course you can see with the Apple example how these things can change in a business over time. How Apple is now one of the most valuable companies in the entire world. They themselves have become a ruler within the smartphone market. If you head over to brandonian.com, not only can you complete an indicator that will give you an idea of where your business sits in these different archetypes, but you can read a little bit more about each of these differences, about what makes each one special, and you can start to understand how for so many businesses they blur them. They blur the concept and as a result fail to pinpoint that one clear mark that allows them to cut through into their marketplace.